This year, 2 movies have hit $1 billion at the box office, and others have come pretty close. But weirdly enough, many big franchise movies have flopped, leaving room in the box office for others to take their spots. Today I'm going to sit down to rank the top 15 highest grossing movies of 2023, and the tiers we have today are S, A, B, C, D, and F, with the new addition of haven't seen, because there is one movie on this list that I just cannot get myself to watch. But nevertheless, let me know your guys' ranking of all 15 of these movies in the comments down below. But without wasting more time, let's get right into it. So these movies are in no particular order. Starting off the list is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is an easy S tier movie. This is one of the best movies of the year. I don't want to spoil my top 10 favorite movies of the year list in this video. I genuinely love everything they do in this movie, from just the Tom Cruise action itself. This is the premier action franchise, so you know you're going to be getting that great action. But story-wise, I think they find a still unique way to further push this franchise. I think the Entity is such a great idea. It's such a modern villain without feeling corny. I think the villain, like the human form, is absolutely menacing. And then obviously you have all of those new side characters like Haley Atwell, Palm Clintoff, and then you have the OG cast as well, including Tom Cruise, and everyone is just absolutely amazing. This movie is also hilarious. I watched it 3 times in theaters, and every time I just found myself chuckling. It is obviously an action movie. It does get serious at times, but I still think they find a great way to balance the humor with the actual like drama side of it, and that makes the movie work really well. But next up on the list is Elemental. I'm gonna put this one at C tier. I think this is a perfectly fine animated movie. It is completely average. It's not amazing. I think the animation itself is really good. It's beautiful, but it's a classic Disney story. It's the emotion that you get from a Pixar film. It's understandable why people enjoyed this movie, and this wasn't one that did amazing at the box office right away. It had to have long legs, and a lot of families talked about it, kids talked about it, and the numbers went up and up and up, which I wasn't expecting at all whatsoever. But this movie did its thing. I enjoyed it. I watched it pretty late into the summer. I didn't watch it right when it came out, but I don't have many complaints about it. It's just an average movie. Then we have Transformers Rise of the Beasts. I'm going to put this one at D tier. I talked very highly of this movie earlier, and I honestly, because I think I was coming right off of the Michael Bay films, watching them all for the first time, and then doing a ranking after that, I think I just wanted something different than the Michael Bay films, but different doesn't necessarily mean the best. I still think this movie is fine. I actually like a lot of elements of it. I like all the new human characters, but I still think that the Autobots are just as lackluster as they get in the end of the Michael Bay films. I do like though that the story is a lot more simpler. There's not the Merlin stuff. It doesn't get too fantastic. I know it's talking robots, but like it keeps it toned down and human enough for you to care about the human characters. On the other end though, the pacing of this movie is not great. The story overall is just, again, very, very simple, and it's just all right. The action is not great. The color grading is kind of annoying at times. It's a completely okay movie. If someone was to turn this on, I'd be like, oh, new Transformers movie. It was fine. Next though, we have Fast X, and this is the one movie that I haven't seen. I don't know why I never saw it. It came out in theaters beginning of summer, and I would love to have gone to see it, but I didn't, and now I have no desire to. Fast is one of those things where if I'm not seeing it on the big screen, I don't really care to watch it. But moving on, The Meg 2. I'm gonna have to put this in F tier. I genuinely had pretty high expectations for this.
You what?
I'm one of the few people that loves the first Meg movie. I rewatched the first Meg movie right before Meg 2 came out, and I was so excited. But they just turn it up a little bit too much in this. There's not really anything coherent about it. I feel like the first movie had something a little bit special with the, like, you know, biggest creature type of thing. And this movie, they double it, they add some more Megs, they add a dinosaur or two, a bigger shark, and that's it. Nothing else really changes. So it feels like they're using that same formula from the first movie and then trying to transfer it over, trying to make it bigger, badder, cooler. That doesn't really work. And then we have Five Nights at Freddy's. This is a movie that I was not expecting on this list at all whatsoever, and I'm gonna go top of C tier. This is an average horror movie. It's not great. I think it was a lot better because I watched it in a theater packed with fans who really enjoyed this stuff. I've never played the games. I'm very new to this world, but I enjoyed it. I think Josh Hutcherson is pretty good. All the supporting cast is entertaining. I don't think, again, it's anything amazing. I think Blumhouse has been putting out some weirdly average movies recently, but they've all been fan pleasers to an extent. Like even Megan, it wasn't the top tier of movies, but fans still really loved it, and I think Five Nights at Freddy's is the same way. And then we have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This is gonna go at the top of D tier. Honestly, I like the final act of this movie way more than other people, but aside from the movie itself, I do want to quickly mention, it's crazy to me that this movie is even on this list because this is considered one of the biggest flops of 2023, and it's still one of the 15 highest grossing movies of the year, which is crazy. But back to the movie, I enjoyed it. I watched all of the Indiana Jones movies for the very first time leading up to this movie in order to rank them all, and again, I had a good time watching all of them. They're all great films, and this one is a good legacy sequel, and I think it works really well. I think it's just a little bit too out there compared to the rest of the films, and that's why a lot of people didn't like it. I know I put it at D tier. I don't think it's the most amazing thing ever, but here's the thing. I'm gonna move it up. I'm gonna move it to I'll move it to the top of C tier just because here's my thing. I really enjoyed this movie, but I haven't thought of it since. And I think about all the Indiana Jones movies all the time now, except for Dial of Destiny. So I feel like that makes me think lesser of it, even though I still really enjoy this movie. And the few times I do think about this movie, I do remember how fun it was. I think the middle act, it's a little bit weird because they're trying to transition between the regular Indiana Jones to like this very fantastical Indiana Jones by the end of all of it. But I think the villain is pretty interesting. I think the girl is all like the successor to Indiana Jones is also very interesting. I don't think this movie is amazing by any means, but I still really enjoyed it. It's a good action adventure movie that also works as a legacy sequel. Next up on the list, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This is going at the very top of C tier. I have to say though, this is one of, if not the most disappointing movie of 2023 in my opinion. I had such high expectations for this movie. I love all the Ant-Man movies thus far, even before Quantumania, and I love Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. The Ant-Man movies in and of themselves have carried this really great storyline that's impacted so many other things in the MCU, and now it's going to lead to the big bad, Kang the Conqueror. I get to this movie, and it is an absolute slogfest. It's fun, and I only like the majority of this movie because I enjoyed the Ant-Man movies prior. The first one was a regular heist movie. Second one was another heist movie. This one is a quantum heist movie, and I get it. It's cool. But when I look back on it, I wanted so much more from this movie, and it really delivered just minimal things on every single aspect. But then we have Barbie, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the highest grossing movie of 2023, and this one's gonna go in A tier. I don't think this movie is a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 perfect, but I would put this around like an 8 to 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoy this movie, and again, it's really like, obviously it's meant for women, it's not meant for me, but I still found myself having a great connection to this film, and that's why I like it so much, because at the end of the day, I was just so surprised that yes, this movie was pretty preachy, and it was very on the nose about its messages, but it didn't turn me away from the film. When you watch a movie and they're very preachy about things, you're like, okay, like, there's nothing further than the preachiness of this. But as I was watching it, I still felt connected to all the characters, connected to all the storylines. The meta nature of the film really worked for me. And again, not a perfect film by any means. I think there is odd pacing. I think it's a little bit too goofy at times, but other than that, I really enjoyed this film. I feel like, I can't even say I recommend checking it out because I feel like everyone has seen this movie. But moving up the list, next up we have the live action Little Mermaid remake, and I'm going to put this at the top of D tier. I just watched this very recently for the first time. I didn't get to catch it in theaters, and it's a fine live action. Okay, here's the thing. It's one of the better live action remakes, but that just makes it an okay movie. Like, I'm still putting the Beauty and the Beast live action remake above the Little Mermaid one. But aside from that, I think Halle Bailey does an amazing job in this character's role. She does a great job of, bringing the musical elements to it. I think all of the performances are actually really good. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to how this movie looks and feels. especially coming off of Avatar: The Way of Water, this movie kind of looks very mediocre to me. But aside from the visual elements of it, I like the new additions that they bring into the Little Mermaid story. It's not just an exact retelling, and I think this is kind of what they needed, is you take the retelling aspect of it and you bring in a few more new elements. And I think that also means bringing in a unique actor or actress in the forefront of it, just because that in and of itself adds a flair, because animation versus live action is so different based on the performances behind the lead characters. And I think the lead actress here brings something very, very different, and I think she was perfect for this role. Next though, we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is also going in S tier. I'm not sure if I would put it above or below Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'll probably go just slightly above it. I've seen this movie, I think 5 or 6 times. Every single time was in theaters. I have not seen this movie since it came on VOD. And every single time I saw it in theaters, it just felt like a brand new experience. This movie goes by like this. It is one of the longest, or if not the longest, animated movie of all time, and it does not feel like that at all. This movie's pacing is perfect. It feels like little missions within the film, but my only complaint, and I feel like a lot of people have this complaint, is it just feels like it cuts off. It feels like it just abruptly ends, and the ending is soured on me just a little bit, but this film is still like a 9 out of 10 for me. This is almost perfect. Again, back to the great parts about this film. Voice acting is amazing. The animation is breathtaking. And just in general, everything flows very well. They built this amazing multiverse in the first film, and they somehow make it even crazier. Yes, there's fan service here, but I don't care because it works within the bounds of this story. Next though, we have Oppenheimer. This is going in top of S tier, one of the best movies of this year. I don't even know how to express my thoughts on this movie. I have a review as well as Christopher Nolan movies ranked. They'll be up here in the description down below. I rewatched this one in theaters like a few days before this video comes out, just because it is re-releasing in theaters. And I've never seen this movie at home. Can't get my hands on the Steelbook. I've seen this movie 5 times in theaters now. Twice in regular IMAX, once 70mm, and then twice again regularly. It is just a breathtaking movie. I don't know what else to say. It is an absolute spectacle. The scope is massive, yet it's still such a personal story. Barbie and Oppenheimer had pretty much every single actor in Hollywood in coexisting on that one day of releasing movies. But Oppenheimer's cast, everyone brings something unique. Everyone brings something that you don't see in a different performance in the same movie. And so everything feels so fresh, everything feels so lively. And it's also something where there's such a wide variety of performances that when someone brings something new, you're like, oh, it might feel odd. It might feel like they're not in place here, but that never is the case. Everyone brings something unique while also still staying in the bounds of what this film is meant to be. This film is dark, it's gritty, it's depressing. It does not feel like 3 hours in my opinion. It is grand in every single way. It is going to go down as one of the best movies of all time. It's in my top 10 list of all time already, and I only see it climbing higher and higher within that list. Then though, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I'm going to put this one at the top of A tier, just above Barbie. I genuinely love this movie. As someone who loves comic book movies, superhero movies, this movie was very fresh for me, but in a bunch of different ways. It was fresh in the sense that, yes, it's James Gunn. He's the absolute GOAT. He knows how to deliver on emotion. He knows how to deliver on character work. But also what really worked for me was how different this movie was on a visual level. I'm not talking something like Loki Season 2 where they adopt a whole new visual style, but the way that they have the wide angles for all of the fights, the motion of the camera being so dynamic. There's so many unique elements that we just don't see in action films that aren't like super spectacle-y. Like, it's not a big action set piece and that's why they're doing it. It's casually dropped in regular set pieces, and that's why it works. I say this all the time. My only gripe for this movie is that they do a few too many character death fake outs. Again, I really enjoy this movie, and I think James Gunn is an absolute master of his craft. I don't know how he keeps on pulling this off, but it only makes me more excited for his future projects. I think the world building, the character building, this feels like the endgame level event, endgame level movie for the Guardians team, and it feels like that scale to me personally. And again, this is just a great film overall. And then we have John Wick Chapter 4, and I'm gonna put this one at the top of A tier as well. I just don't know if I can slip it up into the S tier, strictly because I really enjoy this movie, and I want to rewatch this one before I do my final top 10 ranking of movies for 2023, just because the middle of this movie, I've only seen it once, and it's 3 hours, it's long as hell. The middle of this movie felt like it dragged a lot to me in that theater that day, but I was also very tired, so it could have been that as well. So I need to rewatch this movie. I've been meaning to do it for a while, and obviously from what I remember, the movie absolutely rips, it rocks, the action is amazing, that shotgun scene is ingrained in my head, the beginning scene where he's just pounding the wood, my Dolby theater was literally shaking. There are so many amazing things about this movie. It was just 3 hours long. It's obviously non-stop action, but what I remember was that action didn't necessarily work to its advantage all the time because it just felt like too much. I'm excited to rewatch it. I hope I like it even more on rewatch, but I just think that I need to give it a second watch before I talk too much more about it. The final movie on the list is the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I'm gonna put this in the middle of lower bottom half of C tier. I really enjoy this movie. I was pretty excited for it, and I know sadly it was just a bunch of like bright colors on the screen to get kids' attention, but I had fun with it. I found it a little bit funny at least, and I felt like they did a great job of bringing a bunch of Mario elements into it without making it just feel forced. Again, I had a great time with it. Again, it's not anything amazing. It's by no means is it like top tier animation. It's that basic Illumination 3D animation. Nothing amazing, but it was fun. I think all the characters had entertainment value. I think Chris Pratt was funny as Mario. And I think just overall, they built the world enough to an entertaining level where it didn't just feel like colors thrown at your face, because they were staying true to a lot of the games and stuff like that. So I really like that aspect. But guys, that wraps up my ranking for all 15 of the highest grossing movies of 2023. Again, let me know your ranking of all these movies in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.